Hey, welcome back. I learned a long time ago that it's better to do things yourself and not pay somebody else to do it. Chances are they're going to take a shortcut that you would normally not do, and then they'll expect you to pay them top dollar. I don't feel like dealing with that kind of aggravation. This is a 2005 Honda Pilot with a V6 J Series motor. It's been using coolant for a while, and the other day I went to start it up, and whatever it was that was leaking, let go. And you can smell coolant coming out of the exhaust. It's that sweet smell, you know? So in this video, I'm gonna remove the heads, check the head gaskets, and show you what I found. Check it out. We're gonna start by removing the battery so we don't fry anything or short anything out. The hardest part of this motor is unconnecting all these connectors. I mean, they're all over the place. This engine's got 151,000 miles, so it's the first time anything's been taken apart, so it's going to take me a little bit to loosen everything. The bottom of this throttle body has a couple of coolant lines. You'll see the coolant spilling out. This is an example of the electrical connections that you're going to be dealing with. This is a new knock sensor I'm going to put in. Here you can see a little button or a little tab that kind of sticks up. The electrical connection goes over that, and then there's like a lever that you press down to disengage. It lifts that piece up, and then you can pull it off, but it goes over that little bump. The tools I've been using in the tight spots are like these 90-degree needle nose. If I can't get my finger in there, I'll pinch it like that. If you can see that. At the same time you're pinching it, you want to pull it. But a lot of these plugs are in really tight spaces and you can't really get your hand in there, so that's where these hand tools come in. And then here's an example of a bracket, and this one was bolted to the block down in the valley. It got chewed up by rodents. So this time I got a steel braided one. So it's sitting on a bracket, and this one, you squeeze it like this, and there's a notch in there, and then you got to squeeze. That was a tough one too, so sometimes I use this poker thing and I get in there and I push it, and then use my hand or whatever and kind of push and pull and try not to poke myself. Or you can use this needle nose thing here. See how it moves the lever? Depending on where it's at, you might need a straight nose or 90, but there's a notch there that this slides into. And now it's locked in. Because sometimes I need to get to just the plug by itself, and have two hands on it to pull it, but it's stuck on that bracket and it's facing the wrong way, whereas I'll be pushing down. So in this video, you're going to see me struggling with a lot of these electrical connections. Now I'm unbolting the fuel rail, and I'm going to pull the injectors and the fuel rail out at the same time and keep it all together. If you don't hear any sound in the background, it's not your speakers. I just had music playing in the background, so I turned it down. I edit as much as I can, but I still want to show you stuff, so this is just showing every bolt that I take out. When I watch videos, sometimes I just need to see it, so I figure if I edit too much, you won't be able to see everything, so this is kind of how I like to watch videos, so this is how I edited it. With the fuel system out of the way, I'm going to take the coils out next. I couldn't get the ratchet on, so I'm using the crescent wrench and the Allen wrench socket to get that one middle spark plug coil pack because it's hitting the fan shroud. You're going to see me going back and forth trying to get that wiring harness out and loosened up and out of the way. So as I'm removing other things, I'm trying to look for anything that's fastening down the wiring harness so I can remove that. So now I got to take the power steering pump out, and to do that I got to take the serpentine belt out. So that's the belt tensioner, and I'm going to take the serpentine belt out so that I can get the power steering pump out of the way so I can work on that wiring harness again. I thought putting that paper towel in there was going to catch the oil. It kind of made a mess. I suggest take the serpentine belt completely out so it doesn't get any oil on it. And here I'm just using baling wire to hold things out of the way. You can probably get away with not removing as much stuff as I'm removing, but I kind of like to have room to work. So you'll see me take things apart and get rid of things or move things just so that I can have room. Since I'm here, I'm going to start taking the bolts out of the top of the timing belt covers. The upper ones, or the upper covers, have to come out first before you can take out the lower one anyway. I unplugged a couple of cables from the ECU and showing some other plugs that are kind of hidden over here. And my main goal is to move that wiring harness completely out of the way. I'm getting there. That green plug came out of the alternator, and that's kind of holding down the harness. And here's another one on the right side of the motor near the transmission. There's a couple of plugs down there. So it's getting there. This is the VTEC oil pressure switch off of the oil filter housing. And just to the left of that is a plug for the engine block so you can drain the coolant. So since I'm down here, I'm going to drain that. And I'm going to drain the radiator at the same time. While that's draining, I'm going to start working on the engine mount. Since I already loosened the ECU, there's a bolt behind the ECU bracket. This is the through bolt that connects the two halves of the engine mount. You can see the engine kind of moving up and down. Depending on the condition of your other engine mounts, it's probably a good idea to put a jack or a block of wood in a jack to kind of lift the motor up. In my case, all the other engine mounts are in good shape, so I removed this and it didn't seem to drop very much. I'm removing the engine mount because the water pump sits underneath it, and since I'm pulling a timing belt, I might as well put a new water pump in and not have to go in there again. Here I'm underneath in the wheel well, looking up at the engine mount, and there's one bolt underneath there. And it sits real close to the unibody frame. As you can see, the ratchet just barely fits in there, so you're going to have to use one of these wrenches. When I was doing my research, everybody recommends this 19mm really big fat socket, and it did make easy work of the harmonic balancer. Next, I took the Serpentine Belt tensioner out. It's covering the lower timing belt cover, so it has to be taken out first. Then you can start taking out the lower timing belt cover. On the upper part of the lower timing belt cover, I'm showing that socket on a bolt that I didn't see back there. Be real careful when you're prying. This is aluminum and I'm playing with plastic at the same time, so I got the best of both worlds here. Put this washer with the timing belt cover so you don't forget, and then zip tie it. So when you put that on, you put that in there too. I'm putting the bolt back into the crank so that I can turn the engine over and get the timing marks lined up. And I'm removing the spark plugs right now so it'd be easier to turn. On the engine block, there's an arrow that's pointing down. And on the smaller sprocket, there's an arrow that's pointing up. You want to line up both of those marks. The timing belt was already changed once, so there was already paint on those marks. So just line those up. And then on the top, on the head closest to the radiator, you should see a number 1 lined up with a mark on the timing cover, or the back of the timing cover. On the head near the firewall, there's just a line with no number, and you want that to line up with the corresponding line on the timing cover. Number 4 is the cylinder that's bad, as you can see there. All the other ones look pretty good. Now it's time to remove the belt tensioner for the timing belt. And both of the pipes that are coming off the catalytic converters need to be removed. So the thermostat housing and all the plumbing basically has to be pulled away from the heads because the heads have studs coming off them. So that's what I did here. And then there's that tube in the center with the O-ring. So that was pretty tough. Now that most of the stuff is taken off the engine, I can actually get the valve covers off here and then start pulling the heads. I used a red Sharpie to mark the socket in 90-degree or quarter turn increments so that when I'm loosening the head bolts, I'm not loosening them all at one time. It's just quarter turn at a time. And it's in reverse order, and here's a picture of the order. I left the lower part of the intakes on and the catalytic converter on because I couldn't reach the bolts in the back because of the firewall, and the bolts on the underneath side of the lower intakes were hard to get. There's kind of a hidden bolt there. You'll see when I tear the heads apart. I didn't have enough strength to get it from outside of the vehicle, so I decided to climb in so I can get above the head. That way I can kind of lift it up. And then the catalytic converter oxygen sensor was kind of wrapped around a motor mount, so I had to kind of twist it at the same time I picked it up. And of course that electrical harness was just not out of the way enough. So I'm going to have to figure out something before I put the new head back in, or the rebuilt head. Now it's time to break the heads down so I can get them to the machine shop. Valves are all closed, so I don't have to worry about hitting this on the table. There's that hidden bolt I was talking about. This is the tightening sequence for the rockers. Just do it in reverse when you're removing it. Zip tie the rockers together because they're spring loaded and they're going to want to push out. Oh, that's a little tight. Huh. It's hard to see in there, but it turns out those metal valve guides are leaking coolant for the number 4 cylinder. So the machinist told me that I have to get a new head, or a good used one that he can work with. This is one of those times where you just got to do what you have to do, and eventually you can do what you want to do. By the way, you got to check out this sweet jacket my cousin David sent me. Got the American flag. It says snap on in this sleeve. I don't know if you can see that. It's got a hood, which I love because, you know, when it's snowing, I don't want to get too much snow on my head. It's got pockets that are zipper pockets and regular pockets on the outside of that. Oh, it says snap on here too. Check that out. Anyways, David, thank you for the jacket. It's freaking awesome. I know it's a work jacket, but I just don't want to get it greasy. It's such a nice jacket. I think I'm just going to wear it around town, you know. Go outside, hang out, you know, with my new awesome jacket. Thanks, David. In the next video, I'm going to put this all back together, and hopefully it runs. See you next time, and keep it on the sunny side.